The sun blazed down on the Serengeti, casting long golden rays over the tall grass and scattered acacia trees. It was the dry season, and the earth crackled underfoot. Herds of wildebeest and zebras moved cautiously near the watering holes, ever watchful of predators lurking nearby. In the midst of this vast African savanna, a small girl named Amara clutched a faded stuffed lion in her tiny hands. She was no older than 4, her skin tanned by the sun, and her curly dark hair tied in messy pigtails. Her wide, curious eyes took in the world around her with wonder. Her parents, wildlife researchers from Europe, were setting up observation cameras not far away. They thought she was playing near the camp, but something went wrong. A sudden disturbance, a lion's roar, the panicked cry of a bird, the rustle of fleeing antelope drew her parents' attention. They turned their backs for just a few minutes. And when they looked again, Amara was gone. Amara wandered away, following a butterfly, then a monkey. She didn't notice the distance growing between herself and her family. Hours passed. The sun began to dip toward the horizon. When she finally stopped walking, realizing she was alone, the fear set in. Her throat ached from crying, but no one came. Night fell. The sounds of the savanna changed. Low growls, the chirping of insects, the distant howl of hyenas. Amara curled into a ball beneath a bush, hugging her toy lion. She trembled with each sound. That's when they came. A pride of lions emerged from the shadows, majestic, powerful creatures with golden coats and fierce eyes. Leading them was an older lioness, scarred from past battles, her gaze sharp and intelligent. She stopped a few feet from the girl, sniffing the air. Amara looked up. Instead of screaming, she whispered, "Kitty?" The lioness tilted her head. Then, without a sound, she stepped forward and gently nudged the girl with her nose. Amara giggled. The lioness lay down beside her, wrapping her large, warm body protectively around the child. By morning, the lions had accepted her. For years, Amara lived among them. They did not harm her. Whether it was instinct, magic, or fate, they treated her as one of their own. She mimicked their behaviors, learned their signals, and followed them on hunts. While she could not run like a lion or bring down prey, the pride protected and fed her. The old lioness, whom Amara called Nia, became her surrogate mother. Amara's human memories faded with time. Her name, her parents, the concept of language, these things slipped away. What remained was instinct, survival, and family. She grew strong, lithe, and silent-footed. She ran barefoot over thorn and stone. She communicated with growls, tail flicks, and body language. She watched cubs being born and elders dying. She learned the rhythm of the wild, and above all, she learned loyalty. When Amara was 16, a great drought came. Waterholes dried and prey grew scarce. Tensions between animal groups rose, and so did encounters with humans. But something darker stirred beyond the horizon, the scent of smoke, the crack of gunfire, signs of men who did not come to study or respect the land. Poachers. They came at night, using rifles and trucks. They set traps for elephants and laid poison for predators. One morning, Amara woke to the sound of lion cries, pained, broken, unlike anything she had heard before. She found 2 young males from the pride, lying dead near a watering hole, their bodies stiff, their eyes empty. Grief turned quickly to rage. For the first time, Amara remembered something, an image from long ago, a man with a gun, a lion's roar, her parents screaming her name. It flooded back in pieces. She remembered language, and she remembered being human, but she was no longer only that. She was lion. Amara stood over the fallen bodies of her lion brothers, her chest heaving with shallow, rapid breaths. The morning sun burned above her, but she didn't feel its warmth. Her fingers brushed the stiff golden fur. Blood stained the ground, a cruel, metallic scent that mingled with the bitterness in her throat. The poachers had returned to the savanna. She had no words for vengeance. She had no word for murder or cruelty, but she understood loss. She understood rage. The same instinct that once told her to run from predators now screamed for something else entirely: to fight. She began to watch the edge of the territory. Humans came often now, not the ones with cameras and kind eyes like the vague images from her earliest memories, but those who hid behind trucks and rifles. They worked quickly and efficiently, dragging elephant tusks into crates, tossing meat laced with poison near game trails. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they didn't even look at the animals they killed. Amara started marking them. She learned their patterns, when they moved, where they set traps. She watched from the tall grasses, camouflaged, like a lioness, silent and still for hours. She didn't act yet. She only observed, but she was not alone. Nia, now slower but still fierce, stayed by her side. The rest of the pride followed Amara's gaze, her movements. She had grown into something more than just one of them. She was not prey. She was not cub. She was something new, something in between. When she growled low and circled the meat left by poachers, the lions knew to avoid it. When she marked the edges of the camp with rocks and claw marks, the pride began to treat those signs like a warning. She was organizing them. She was leading them. One night, the poachers returned, drunk and careless. Amara was ready. She had taken small things from abandoned camps: rope, metal, even matches she'd seen humans use. She didn't know how to read, but she knew how to remember. She made a plan. She crouched beneath a tree, the lions in a half-circle behind her. She looked them each in the eyes, pausing for a moment longer at Nia. The old lioness blinked slowly, then gave a soft chuff, an ancient sound of trust. Then Amara leapt into motion. The ambush came at the riverbed. First, Amara's trap. Thin ropes strung between tree roots slowed one of the trucks. The lions moved silently in the dark, flanking the area. The humans stumbled out, shouting, unaware of the eyes watching them. One stepped into the open and found himself face to face with a full-grown male lion. He screamed, turned to run, and fell into the pit Amara had dug days before. Not deep enough to kill, but enough to break a leg. The others began to fire into the darkness, but they didn't aim. They didn't see their targets. The lions circled, driving the men into confusion. They didn't attack. Not yet. Amara had warned them somehow, with gesture and repetition. She didn't want slaughter. Not unless it was necessary. She emerged from the grass, her body painted in ash and mud like war paint. She carried a broken spear she had found near an old Maasai camp. Her eyes glowed in the firelight. The poachers froze. One of them whispered, "Is that a girl?" Another, "No, that's a demon." She didn't speak. She simply raised the spear and gave a long, low growl. From the chest, from the heart, a lion's roar. Behind her, the lions echoed it. The poachers fled. They wouldn't be back. Not soon, maybe not ever. In the days that followed, the savanna quieted. The pride moved with new purpose, new awareness. Other animals began to return to the watering holes. The poison meat stopped appearing. Amara sat beneath a baobab tree, watching the wind ripple through the grass. Nia lay beside her, head in her lap. She stroked the lioness's fur absent-mindedly. For the first time in years, she spoke aloud. Her voice cracked like dry leaves. "My name is Amara." The lioness looked up. "I remember." The days grew longer and quieter. The poachers had vanished, but not forever. Their scent still lingered in distant corners of the savanna, like smoke after a fire. Amara knew better than to believe they were gone for good. But for now, there was peace. And in that peace, the past began to return. It started with dreams. At night, Amara dreamed of strange things, of glowing rectangles with moving images, voices calling her name in a language she didn't fully understand, a warm hand brushing her cheek, the smell of coffee and paper. She woke with a start one morning, heart racing. Amara. The name had returned to her fully now, like a bird landing gently in her chest. She looked down at her hands, calloused, strong, sun darkened, and wondered who she really was. One evening, as the Pride rested in the shade, a new sound reached Amara's ears, the soft whir of a helicopter far in the distance. She stood at once. To the lions, it was just another noise from the sky, but to her, it meant something else. Humans were coming, not poachers, not hunters, something different. She climbed a nearby outcrop and scanned the horizon. The craft disappeared behind a ridge, but the sound remained. With it came a flood of emotions: fear, curiosity, hope, and a question. Did someone still remember her? That night she went alone. For the first time in years, Amara left the protection of the Pride. She walked for miles beneath the stars, barefoot and silent, the grass whispering around her legs. The wind carried smells of smoke and diesel, signs of human camps. She followed them. Near dawn, she found it, a research station built near a small river. Solar panels glinted in the morning sun. Tents flapped gently in the breeze. People moved about, drinking from metal cups, carrying notebooks and cameras. She froze in the underbrush and watched. They looked like the people from her dreams. One man stepped out of a tent, a tall figure with silver-streaked hair. He rubbed his eyes, then suddenly froze, staring in her direction. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. Recognition, disbelief, memory. "Amara?" he whispered. Dr. Elias Moreau had been her father's colleague. He had searched for Amara after her disappearance, returning to the Serengeti year after year. The world had assumed she was dead, but Elias never stopped hoping. He approached slowly, holding out his hand. Amara didn't move. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but something deeper, older, kept her there. He dropped to his knees. "You're alive. My God, you're alive." He didn't try to touch her. Instead, he reached into his bag and pulled out a small object, a worn, faded photograph. A young girl, laughing in the arms of her mother. A stuffed lion in her hand. She stared at it. Something broke open inside her. "I remember," she whispered. The reunion was cautious. Amara stayed at the edge of the camp, always ready to flee. She slept in trees or under rocks, not in tents. She watched the humans with the eyes of a lion, measuring, testing. Some tried to approach too fast, and she hissed or vanished. Others left her food and water nearby and waited patiently. Elias understood. "She's not just human anymore," he told them. "She's something in between." In time, she let them teach her again how to read, how to speak. Words came back slowly, like pieces of a puzzle. She learned that her parents had passed away years ago, never knowing what became of her. It hurt, but it didn't destroy her, because she still had a family. Weeks passed. The world outside began to stir. News spread of a wild girl raised by lions. Reporters wanted interviews. Governments wanted answers. Scientists debated what was real and what was myth. But Amara didn't care for their noise. She only cared about the Pride. One day she told Elias, "I must return. They need me." He hesitated. "You could stay here. You'd be safe." She shook her head. "I am not just this. I am theirs." And with that, she vanished into the grass once more, heading home. Amara returned to the Pride as the moon reached its fullest. The lions greeted her not with growls, but gentle nuzzles and flicks of tails. Naya pressed her muzzle to Amara's shoulder, inhaling her scent. Amara knelt, pressing her forehead to the lionesses. "I'm back." She stayed with them in silence that night, surrounded by soft breathing, warm fur, and the familiar rhythm of paws shifting in sleep. Her body had learned to sleep like them, alert even in rest, every sound a signal. But her mind was restless. She had seen the human world again. She had remembered her name, her family, her other life. But she had also remembered why she left it behind. At dawn, trouble came. A wounded giraffe staggered into the Pride's territory, foam at its mouth, eyes wide and glassy. It collapsed in a heap, its breath rapid and shallow. The lions sniffed it cautiously, but Amara pushed them back. Something was wrong. Minutes later, birds began to fall from the trees, wings twitching. Then she smelled it. Poison. She ran to the edge of the territory, to the ridge where the horizon cracked open into dry flatlands. And there she saw them, 3 trucks, camouflaged in netting and dust, slowly moving west. Poachers. They had returned, with more men, more weapons, and now poison in bulk. They were not hunting for sport. They were clearing land. They were preparing for something big. This time, they were not trying to kill lions. They were trying to kill everything. Amara knew she couldn't do it alone. She returned to the research station. Elias met her at the gate. "I knew you'd come back. There are trucks," she said. "Poison. South Ridge. 3 of them." He didn't ask how she knew. He just nodded. "We'll call the Rangers." But Amara shook her head. "They won't come fast enough." Elias hesitated. "Then what are you planning?" She looked back toward the grasslands. "War." She called the pride. Not with words, but with signals. Postures, gestures, the ways of the lions. They gathered at sunset near the ancient baobab, where Naya had once taught her to stalk and listen. She stood on a rock above them, her silhouette tall and wild in the dying light. She drew lines in the dirt. She gestured toward paths, routes, escape angles. The lions watched, ears forward, alert. They remembered the last time she had led them, and they trusted her again. This time, Amara had more than lions. She had humans too. Elias and 2 other researchers volunteered to help. They weren't soldiers, but they had drones, signal flares, and cameras. Enough to distract, to confuse, to buy time. Amara formed a plan, a human mind fused with lion instinct. They would strike at dusk. The first move came from the skies. A drone buzzed above the first truck, drawing fire and attention. The poachers fired upward, cursing, unaware of the silent movement in the grass. Then the flares lit up the ridge, red lights streaking across the darkening sky. Confused and blinded, the men stumbled into defensive positions. Too late. Amara and the lions came from 3 sides, using the tall grass and terrain as cover. They didn't attack to kill. They drove the men toward the traps Amara had set, deep pits, tangled wires, thorn barriers. 2 were injured. 1 fled screaming into the bush. 1 truck burst into flames, ignited by a flare that struck its fuel tank. The remaining poachers ran. Amara stood above the ridge, panting, her hands streaked with dust and blood. The lions stood beside her, their roars echoing into the night. This time, the victory was complete. In the aftermath, the Savanna was still. The Rangers arrived 2 days later to find what remained of the trucks and the captured poachers, tied and bloodied, but alive. They listened to the researcher's story in stunned silence. "She saved the pride," Elias said, "and the whole reserve." Amara didn't wait for praise. She had no need for medals or headlines. Her home was safe again, but her journey wasn't over. The rains came early that year. The parched land drank gratefully from the sky, and the Savanna slowly turned from dusty gold to vibrant green. Rivers swelled. Flowers bloomed. Herds returned in greater numbers, following the scent of water. So did peace. But Amara felt something shifting. Not in the land, but within herself. For the first time in her life, she truly stood between 2 worlds. In one, she could track a lion's movement by a broken blade of grass, feel a storm coming in the vibrations of the ground, speak without words. In the other, she could read, speak, even joke in English again. She understood what scientists meant when they said ecosystem or extinction or legacy. She had become more than either a girl or a lioness. She had become a bridge. One morning, Naya didn't rise. The old lioness lay beneath their favorite tree, her breathing shallow but peaceful. Her eyes found Amara's one last time, and in them was neither fear nor pain, only the deep, patient wisdom of the wild. Amara lay beside her, pressing her face into the warm fur as the last breath left Nia's lungs. She didn't cry, not in the human way, but she lifted her head to the sky and released a long, low roar that echoed across the land. One by one, the lions around her joined in. The entire Savanna listened. The queen was gone, but her daughter remained. After the burial, Amara sat on the ridge, the wind tugging at her tangled hair. Elias climbed the slope behind her, hands in his pockets. "She was old," he said gently. "She had a good life." "She gave me mine," Amara replied. "Everything I am is because of her." He sat beside her. "And now?" She was quiet for a long time. Then, "I think it's time." For what? To stop hiding. The world wasn't ready for Amara. Or maybe it had waited long enough. With Elias's help, she agreed to share her story, not as a scientific curiosity or wild myth, but as a call to protect what remained. Her first public words, spoken at a global conservation conference, were simple. "The lions raised me, not out of instinct, out of grace. We owe them more than fear. We owe them our respect." People listened. Videos of her with the pride went viral. Images of her walking barefoot beside lions or crouched over maps with researchers spread across screens and cities. She became a symbol, not just of survival, but of balance. Funding poured into wildlife protection across Africa. Entire reserves were given new life. Poaching decreased, not erased, but slowed. And everywhere her story went, one word followed: Amara, the one who came back, but she didn't stay in the cities long. They weren't her home. After each trip, each speech, each interview, she returned to the land that raised her, to the lions, to the grass and wind and sky. Sometimes she stayed for weeks in silence, walking with the pride, hunting, sleeping beneath the stars. She never wore shoes. She never forgot the taste of wild water or the way lion breath smells at dawn. Years passed. The girl became a legend. But on the Savanna, she remained just Amara, the lion-hearted, the watcher of the pride, the one who came from two worlds but belonged to both. And some nights, when the moon was high and the wind still, people swore they could hear a strange sound in the distance, a girl's voice and a lion's roar, together.